Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining GG+A for this latest webinar, Engagement Activities for Major Gift Prospects, How Lyric Opera of Chicago Responded. My name is Jeff Nearhoof, and I serve as a Senior Vice President with GG+A. Joining me today is Patrick Nugent. Patrick is Vice President for Individual and Organizational Giving at Lyric Opera of Chicago. He oversees major, planned, direct response, and institutional giving, as well as development operations. A graduate of Xavier University in Cincinnati and the University of Chicago, he is a former college professor and has held development and chief executive positions in arts and culture, higher education, and social services. He has worked in the US, Japan, and Kenya. Patrick reports to Elizabeth Hurley, Chief Development Officer, and is part of a leadership for Principal Gifts, and Kate Later, Senior Director for Boards and Events. Now a little bit about Lyric. Lyric is redefining what it means to experience great opera today through artistic excellence and grow new audiences, engagement with communities to ignite creativity across Chicago, and a modernized opera house that is the setting for a truly great experience. Lyric is leading the advancement of opera. This innovative vision is delivering ever more exciting, thought-provoking, and inclusive audience and community experiences, while increasing the gravitational pull of this art form, its company, and the city of Chicago. For audience members, if you have questions, please click on the Q&A button and we will follow up after the webinar. So Patrick, to start with, please share how Lyric, what actions did your team take for those prospects who had tickets?
Well, let me begin by saying, Jeff, how grateful Lyric Opera of Chicago has been for our partnership with you and John Glier and your colleague Ann Cohn, who's helping us to update and optimize our direct response strategies. And to everyone participating in this conversation, I wish good health and good courage during a time that can honestly be quite frightening for many of us. Our cancellation announcements and our work with ticket holders happened in stages. Lyric was about to present 3 complete cycles of a new production of Richard Wagner's The Ring of the Nibelungen. It's been a massive enterprise, 10 years in the making. It's about the most expensive project an opera company can undertake. The audiences were to come from all 50 states and 32 foreign countries. But on Friday, the 13th of March, our general director, Anthony Freud, along with our board chair and other key board members and leadership, called an all-company meeting at rehearsal time and broke the news that we were canceling the ring cycle, beginning, of course, with the artistic and technical teams. When that meeting was over, and a tearful meeting it was, we released the news to the press and informed our audiences by email and web. We began at that moment acting on a key principle that was going to guide us through the coming weeks and months. We would be as transparent as possible with staff, artists, and our constituents, being, as Anthony Freud said, both rigorously realistic about unfolding events while rigorously optimistic that the time would come to resume our performances. The financial challenge was enormous. The structure of this production and the fact that we'd been working on it for a decade meant that we achieved no real financial savings by canceling, and in fact exposed us to losses that would have been just massive had they all come to pass. Our work with donors was part of a broad and integrated strategy with our marketing team. That strategy included all of our ring ticket holders and was aimed at reducing those massive losses. Because we were canceling and not postponing, we had to offer refunds to ticket holders. But we worked with our board's development chair, who is also the board chair-elect, Sylvia Neal is her name, and her husband, Dan Fischel. And they made a major gift as seed funding for what we called the Heroes Fund, named after the heroes of Valhalla, an important part of the ring cycle. The Heroes Fund had 2 parts. The first was to ask all the production sponsors, big sponsors, to allow us to convert their ring sponsorships to operating funds to help us stem these losses. We would then announce this to our ticket holders and all of our donors as a challenge or a match to inspire them to donate back the value of their tickets and to make extra donations. That's the second part of the Heroes Fund. We then segmented our ticket holders between our telemarketing, telefundraising, direct response, major giving, and principal giving teams, and gift planning as well. And we hit the phones like mad. Our major give, principal gift, and gift planning officers had a twofold mission. This brings up the other fundamental principle that we were holding to: staying close to our donors, being in touch with them, inquiring after their welfare, and sharing Lyric's situation with candid honesty. So this twofold mission they had was, first, to just check in with our donors and see how they were doing, how the pandemic was affecting them and their lives and their families. And second, to explain the options for their ring and other tickets, which they were, of course, intensely interested in. Our donors loved hearing from us. The conversations which began then and have continued since were rich and deep, and they've yielded a great many significant extra gifts. Our donors were so grateful to hear from us, grateful that we cared about them, and eager to know how we were doing. This process took weeks and involved literally thousands of phone calls, in addition to other forms of communication. From a fundraising perspective, it's been a great success. We reached our goal of $5 million quickly and raised it then to $7.5 million. We met that goal, and it's now at $10 million. So we're just over $9 million towards that goal as of today. Combined with some painful furloughs and other kinds of reductions, we were able to reduce potential $27 million losses to about 14 or 15 million. The benefit wasn't just financial, though. Considering our relationships with donors, the wonderful conversations we've been having have created a great deal of long-term value. Donors, young and old, are pretty much at home these days, and they're answering their phones. They're often quite eager to talk. At one point, one of my colleagues said, the longer this isolation continues, the longer the phone calls get. We also had one major gift officer, a brand new one, whose portfolio is still under construction, who became responsible for taking incoming calls from ring ticket holders who had given special donations in order to get early ticket access. This was a distinct challenge because a great many of these donors are not from Chicago or our region and have no other particular connection with or loyalty to Lyric, but they were donors nonetheless. And we tried to give them the same level of personal stewardship and customer service of which Lyric is very, very proud. So not long after we began this process, we were compelled to cancel all of our remaining performances. This included a big musical and a chamber opera. Both were postponed to later seasons, which changed the dynamic a bit, but we again hit the phones with a whole new set of lists and continued to build the whole thing into this Heroes Fund. Along the way, our gift officers worked to balance our care and concern for the welfare of donors with our need to tell our story. John Glier gave us our marching orders early on. He said, be completely transparent with your donors, be clear about your situation, and be candid about your need. And we have followed that counsel rigorously. And along the way, we kept hearing how important we are in our donors' lives, which has been incredibly gratifying for us. And we also were hearing how eager they were to ensure that we would always be there for them.
Thank you. I know your office started working from home during this period also. What changes to group meetings, one-on-one strategy sessions, and reporting occurred so you, Elizabeth, and both Kates could help your officers with the vital work that had to be done?
Well, if you're elderly and decrepit like me, you may remember when I was a kid, there's a program on PBS for middle schoolers, and the theme song ran, we're gonna zoom, 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 ah, zoom. And that's the answer to the question. As a matter of fact, in our development senior management team this morning, one of our leading colleagues performed that entire theme from Zoom, beginning to end, including the zip code that always happened at the end of the program. But that's it. While remaining in close touch with our donors, we've also worked really hard to remain in close touch with one another. The senior management team in development increased its meetings from once a week to 3 times a week. Each of the 5 teams that reports to me has continued their weekly meetings, video meetings. We've done a lot of work readjusting portfolios over the last 2 months, work that was already scheduled, and we had brought 2 new major gift officers on board March 1st. So most importantly, all of the gift officers on all of these teams have been in their season of creating a goal, a strategy, and a plan for every donor and reviewing them with their managers. Those officers have now been doing Zoom meetings with our Chief Development Officer, Elizabeth Hurley, in order to review their portfolios and plans, just as we usually would. Our weekly all-staff meetings have also continued, although again, they feel a little bit differently looking at the Hollywood squares instead of being in the same room with each other. And our bi-weekly fundraising strategy meetings, which involve all frontline fundraisers and anybody else who wants to join the fund, have also continued, although we've altered the structure of that to help us plan a little bit more flexibly for this season of uncertainty. So all of this has been done by Zoom or Google Hangouts. We've had to learn the most effective way to share documents and prepare agendas and manage the enthusiastic participation of small chats and delivery persons and the occasional spouse wandering through the background. But we've actually also brought a brand new senior director on board during this time, and she has had to get up and running completely from her dining room table over Zoom. Perhaps the most traumatic thing for folks is, or at least for some of the elderly citizens in the development office like myself, is that we've had to take the plunge and learn how to use Slack, which is now the native language among our marketing colleagues and has been creeping into currency among younger development folks. But honestly, it's helped immensely in the communication between marketing and development for us to begin learning Slack. And that communication has been more important than ever during a season that really does demand a more intense collaboration. But these changes, in a sense, are mostly superficial. They're about how we're interacting with one another. We've really intensified our collaborative communications with each other. Our Chief Development Officer, Elizabeth Hurley, has also made a point of hanging out on Google Hangouts one-on-one with a few development staff every week. And she's given special attention to those that she doesn't usually work very closely with. The point of this is not to check up on their work, but to check in with them personally and to show that she's invested in the crucial work that they're doing. Everyone who's done this, as far as I've heard, has really found it delightful and encouraging.
That's terrific. Thank you. You had referenced a bit earlier, Patrick, that canceling the season confronted Lyric with a serious deficit for the year. Could you share how your board of directors responded specifically, and what impact this has had on your team in terms of securing annual, major, and principal gifts during this period?
Jeff, the involvement of our board has been nothing short of transformational. The single most important thing the board did was the decision of our incoming board chair, Sylvia Neal, and her husband, Dan Fischel, to launch this Heroes Fund that I described. Many of the major sponsors who converted their sponsorship funds were board members, and one board member who was not a production sponsor pledged a special gift of $1 million. Sylvia, the incoming chair, then worked with us to draft a special email asking every single board of directors member, and there are over 100 here, to contribute an extra gift to the Heroes Fund. We expect that participation to reach 80% very shortly, and perhaps exceed that as well. We have several volunteer boards as well as our board of directors, and they're also being asked to make Heroes Fund contributions. The principal and major gift donors who put together the challenge portion were really inspired both by the initial gift, but also by the prospect of challenging our wider donor base, and the donors and ticket holders with whom we have talked were also really inspired by this challenge dimension, knowing that their money was being matched by big donors. We've broadened this challenge so that any increase in any donor's operating giving over last year's giving counts as part of the fund as we move towards the end of the fiscal year here. That's also continuing with our telefund efforts, our director sponsor appeals, and our conversations with mid-level and major donors. Our board has really stepped up to this challenge, and their actions have inspired other donors at every level.
It's really great that you have such a dedicated group of volunteers. Congratulations. Same period, you are also setting individual strategic plans for next year's seasons. Would you share how you are keeping your team motivated and organized? And do you have any insights to share for other organizations? What has been the most effective as you balance current season needs with planning for the future?
So I guess the first thing to say is that the spirit of our team is entirely collaborative. And in a lot of ways, I regret that I'm the one sitting here doing this, because all I'm doing is speaking for a very highly motivated, well-organized, collaborative, energetic team. This has been teamwork from beginning to end. But in any case, it has really been all about the basics: a strategy and a dollar goal for every donor, a year-long plan to carry out that strategy, working that plan in a disciplined way, and connecting our donors' passions and interests with Lyric's needs and opportunities. We're just adapting that way of functioning to the peculiar circumstances that we're in right now. So finalizing our fundraising plans for next year has also helped us to keep focus on the future during what is an uncertain present. And with many of our major donors, talking about the Heroes Fund now for the current season has also enabled us to have a conversation about the next season, next year as well. At the same time, we don't know what next season is going to look like. So we're working collaboratively to imagine what our case for support might be for our donors. We have to be prepared for a number of scenarios, so we're working together as a group to imagine and to craft that case proactively, to incorporate and embrace the uncertainty, and to emphasize longer-term surviving and thriving in tandem with next year's performances. We also have to reimagine what all of our different fundraising and stewardship activities might look like, and that process is being led by our Vice President for Principal Gifts, Kate Sheehan. With our individual and institutional funders, we really want to imagine a new kind of conversation and lead them proactively into that conversation. As fundraisers, we can't just wait for the circumstances to dictate our strategy and our arguments. We have to adopt a new kind of fundraising posture and a new kind of case proactively to embrace a very different and possibly very difficult near-term future. We're looking forward to working with you on that project, Jeff. And at the same time, I know that the frontline fundraisers know their own donors best and will feel a much greater investment in these new case statements and conversations if they've had significant ownership in crafting them.
Great. Well, we have a few minutes left on the webinar. Any final thoughts you wanted to share with the audience today in terms of, looking back, anything you might have changed or looking for to think have on your teams?
I missed a chunk of your question there, Jeff, but I'm going to guess what it was. I would say a couple of things. I'm just going to repeat, the basics are so incredibly important. Continuing to build and engage relationships with our donors matters now more than ever, but also not abandoning and shying away from our plans with our donors. We do have to adapt them and adjust them, but having a plan in front of us for every donor will continue to be a guide, particularly in major gift work. And if we can't talk to them exactly the same way we thought we could, we can still work that plan and talk to them in a way that's suitable for the current circumstances. So I think that's critically important. The second thing is, I suspect that people are on this webinar from a whole variety of sectors within nonprofits, and I've worked in several of those sectors. Particularly for people who are in the performing arts, however, I would really emphasize that as as critical as other areas of needs are, people still need the arts. And they may need them, in fact, more than ever during seasons when we have heightened anxiety and fear, when we're a little bit more cut off from family and friends and neighbors and social activities. The arts have a really crucial, I would call it a healing effect, a restoring effect. And our donors are telling us this. So they're eager that we come back, and they're eager that we not shy away from the challenges that are presented in a time like this. Another thing that I would say is, and I think I said this before, but I'll emphasize it again. As crucial as it is to stay close to our donors, it's also crucial to stay with one another. Across nonprofits, we have to share strategies and ideas and share our creativity and innovation with one another. And inside our own organizations, as we're now looking at each other in very two-dimensional, flat-screened ways, we need to stay close to our colleagues inside our own organizations. We've found that, you know, some particularly of our younger colleagues who may be living alone, for instance, have felt a kind of an isolation. And as workmates, I think we can support one another in those ways. I love what, as I said earlier, what our Chief Development Officer is doing, just going and hanging out with staff members, just to check on them, and just to, you know, find new commonalities they didn't know that they had. I think that's of critical importance.
Great advice, Patrick. Thank you. I continue to remain appreciative of the partnership we have with you. It's been my pleasure really to work with Elizabeth, and I'm so pleased that you and Kate joined the team. You have a fabulous team, as you have said. It's been great working with all of you. So today, Patrick, thank you for your time and your thoughtful discussion. It's been really great hearing what you've done, and and just your overall advice to other arts organizations. For everyone in the audience, I hope you